Hello, hello, I'll do some video requests before getting back to my audiobook. Okay. So this one is from Gypsy Huskled. I like Gypsy Huskeld's ones. Thought-provoking ones. Okay, so Gypsy Huskled goes... Here, I'll put this on the tripod. So I'll just leave it like that and then read it. Sorry, this is taking a while. Da-da-da-da. There we go. Okay. Don't you love tripods? Okay. Video request. Can you please share your thoughts on Bill O'Reilly and his War on Christmas theme? Why does he create fake issues when there are real problems in the world, like war and poverty? Also, do you believe he is a conspiracy theorist similar to Alex Jones? With his concept, so far left progressive atheist destroying the moral fabric of America. He seems to want to stop any policy change such as Obamacare, and thinks America is fine left as is, when it clearly has tons of problems and reforms needed. He also always says America is a Judeo-Christian nation, morally defined by religion, and thinks socialists, capitalism reformers, are against the spirit of America. He has defined what America is all about to the public. In the past, he has also threatened to quit working if they raised his taxes any further. And he seems to have delusions of grandeur. Isn't Bill O'Reilly rich enough that he doesn't need to feel victim of the government? Isn't he defining what America is about somewhat tyrannical and against the spirit of American freedom? Thanks. Okay. Yeah, he's definitely against the spirit of American freedom. Okay, here. Go out. Okay, so yeah, share your thoughts on Bill O'Reilly and his War on Christmas theme. Yeah, well, I think Bill O'Reilly is I think he's crazy, but I think the main thing about him is that he's basically works for the super wealthy and just wants to keep the power structure the same as it is, because he's fundamentally biased, he's fundamentally racist, and just doesn't want... He thinks that, you know, America was founded by English people, Christian English people, and because of that, all of the success from America only comes from those people, and all those other people, the black people and the brown people and everything, are better suited to just be the laborers, because they come from backgrounds that don't have a high level of civilization. They come from, because black people come from Africa, they inherently don't have the capability to be a productive member of a civilized society. It's some kind of genetic thing that's wrong with them. They can't, if they're given the same opportunities as white people, they will turn America into Africa because of some kind of genetic thing. They're just naturally inferior to us. And same thing goes to the Latinos and the Chinese people, and all of the other religions. And so he probably believes that because he was raised in a very racist household, and is just naturally one of these really ignorant people. And he grows up, and I was watching one of the YouTube videos on the Young Turks, and I guess Cenk was saying that he wanted to be an actor, and so yeah, he had these delusions of grandeur, like what Gypsy Hustled says. He wanted to be a big star, and found his calling, spouting all of his hatred all of his narrow-minded views on everything, and it fit right in perfectly well with what the power structure wants. All of these rich white men, rich old white men, who were born rich and came through an educational system where all they have to do is play the game, and they get to get all of those jobs in the the political and financial sector, where they're all tied in together. All the richest people and the presidents and vice presidents of all the big companies, and all of the who help finance the campaigns of all of these politicians who play the game, and he's the perfect mouthpiece for them, which is what Fox News in general is. Fox News was started back in 89 or something with $350 million grant from one of these big companies, and so it's just a propaganda arm of them, and he's the voice for it, to try to maintain that, and because they're terrified of something new. They're terrified of change, and this has gone back throughout history. The people have always wanted to maintain their power structure. Catholic Church, monarchies. You always have to wrestle it from them, take it from them. And the more insulated they are, the more idiotic they sound, and the more out of touch with reality and everything else they are. The fact of the matter is that the world's changing, and allowing black people and brown people to be in positions of power is a good thing, and they're just as American as the rest of us. They're brought up with the same traditions and watching the same programs on TV and same religion and everything. It's the way you think is only skin deep, and how you're raised. And a lot of black and brown people have a long way to go to catch up with white people in terms of being civilized people, but that's not from the color of their skin. That's from growing up in the ghetto and not having any opportunities. And it takes generation after generation, a few generations, to come out of ignorance, and that's the problem with black people. And so that's why we need affirmative action, to help them go up, which I'm sure Bill O'Reilly's all against. So that's basically my general view of Bill O'Reilly. And he's the guy who he's a really good he can say lies with a bold face, like he's telling the truth, and he twists stuff around. He's a master of spinning stuff and making it like 180 degrees. And if somebody's fighting for freedom, like atheists trying to keep the country secular, he says then that's actually against the First Amendment, freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is the first clause of the First Amendment, the Constitution, is Congress won't make any law protecting any one religion over the other religion, make their country secular. And the idea was so that to make it a level playing field for everybody, to allow everybody to exist here. And so he twists that right around 180 degrees to say that people fighting for that, to keep religion away, is suppressing Christians, because the majority of Christians, or the majority of Americans, are Christian. I guess he said 82% of Americans are Christian. So if you want to uphold the First Amendment and just remind people, they're not trying to make a law. They're just like one of his problems with the war on Christmas is people were putting up privately funded billboards saying that, yeah, don't forget to call it just the holiday tree, and don't forget to say happy holidays, to try to not say Merry Christmas, to alienate all the other people who aren't Christians. And yeah, he goes and says that they're suppressing Christians and saying that Christians aren't allowed to say Merry Christmas themselves. And they never said that. And they never said you're not allowed to say Merry Christmas. They're just saying don't do it in a public place where there's everybody around, you know. I mean, we should uphold the First Amendment and remember why we have that there, and try to keep America secular. That was the best thing that we did, because I think we take it for granted generally that America is secular and that you can be whatever religion that you want. Because think about it, being able to be whatever religion you want, that's allowing you to believe whatever you want. And we're obviously supposed to be able to believe whatever we want. But being able to believe whatever you want leads to you being able to say whatever you want. And that's the second clause of the First Amendment. So they tie right in, you know. Being able to say sprouts from the roots of being able to believe what you want. And being able to say whatever you want is what creates a country that's healthy, because people can have a healthy dialogue. If you look back in history, countries always collapse when there's no dialogue. The French Revolution happened because the king was oblivious to what was going on in the rest of the country. There was no dialogue. And then all the massacre when 10,000 people died after the French Revolution, there was no dialogue. People were just insulting each other, and there was no communication. So, and the whole history of religious countries, that was the cause of the Spanish Inquisition, where they burned all these people at the stake for like 400 years. They ejected Muslims from the whole country. They ejected all of the Jews from the whole country. And that's kind of like Nazis. Germany ejecting all the Jews from the country and killing all the Jews. It's because of their religion. Christians have been burning people at the stake for a long time. They burned Jan Hus, was that him, at the stake, for saying that the sun wasn't the center of the solar system. I mean, the Earth wasn't the center of the solar system. And so we need to, that's the most important thing, him twisting stuff around and just creating like more hatred is just, it's just a front for what's really happening. They're just trying to maintain the power. And and anyways, the Young Turks uploaded a video a couple days ago, like a week ago. You should see it. I guess for the last 20 years he has this annual thing that America's waging a war on Christmas. And he had some guy on there, some politician or pastor or somebody, who said that he gave an example of the war on Christmas, that there's this school district that banned any Christmas carols in the school. And they asked the guy, and the guy on O'Reilly said that they banned it because the ACLU gave them the order to, and that's against freedom of speech. So the Young Turks went in and investigated that, and they contacted the people, and he said, no, actually they didn't ban us. I got the idea because a year and a half ago, the ACLU had a press conference talking about the separation of church and state. So a year and a half later, they completely fabricate a story and say that the UCLA directly told them that they can't sing these Christmas carols. They made it up. It was a bold-faced lie. They made it up. Busted again. Bill O'Reilly, I should get on the internet and the YouTube here and find video. I should have done that before this video, but find video clips of him being called out on all of his lies, because it happens over and over again. And it's not so much that he's lying himself, but he gets people on who tell lies and interviews them as though, agreeing with them as though they're telling the truth. I think the Young Turks had one where they had a compilation, and they're not that hard. If you type Bill O'Reilly caught lying, I'm sure there's lots of mixes of it. Al Franken, I think he's a senator of New Jersey or something. He was the guy from Saturday Night Live. I'm special, or something. That guy. He wrote a book called The Lying Liars and the Liars Who Tell Them. And Bill O'Reilly was one of the chapters in his book, and he just listed all the examples of when he just did a lie. I haven't read the book. My brother has it, but he won't loan it to me because he borrowed it from somebody. But yeah, I remember like a year and a half ago or a year ago, he had that guy Chris Kyle on, who is a sniper who wrote a book about being a sniper in the Army. And in the book, he said that he punched Jesse Ventura in the face and knocked him down because he said he was glad that his friend died in Afghanistan. And so Bill O'Reilly had that guy Chris Kyle on, and where he said it, and then they're talking trash about Jesse Ventura, and Jesse Ventura found out about that, and he said in his interview with Alex Jones and other people that he'd never met the guy, and he made it up. So instead of Bill O'Reilly leaving it at that, he had these two other women on who were on his show saying that they have two witnesses to attest that it really happened, that he punched Jesse Ventura and knocked him down. And but they didn't mention the witnesses, and they didn't have them on or anything. So they just backed up their first lie with another set of lies. So Jesse Ventura ended up having to sue them for saying that, for boldly making stuff up. They actually do that a lot to Jesse Ventura. The press came out, a bunch of different news organizations came out with a story that he got arrested for tailgating somebody in Wisconsin or something, when he hadn't even been in the state for 20 years, and that he had a rage. He raged at a TSA guy in a airport when he hasn't even been in a plane for years, just making stuff up. So it's amazing, yeah. He has no problem with lying. So I think he's crazy. I think he has some kind of justification in his head that he gets to say whatever he wants because he's protecting the power structure of America, and which is the white Christian. And if the white Christian isn't in power anymore, then the world will turn into a third world country, because all those third world countries are black and brown, like voodoo or something. I mean, they're Christian too. He was saying that he had the Young Turks did another video where he had a problem with people wanting to call it the holiday tree. And he said, call it a Christmas tree, it's totally Christian. And Shank did a story that, the Christmas tree actually is originally from a pagan tradition in Germany. And they brought the tree over originally in 1860, so it hasn't even been around that long, 150 years. The Saxe-Coburg-Gotha king that they brought over from Germany, because the Stuarts line died out and they needed a king. By then kings were kind of obsolete anyways. He didn't even speak English, and he was the one who brought the Christmas tradition over to England, which then came to America. Because it was a German tradition, a pagan tradition. And Tertullian, the first Christian big scholar, actually said that anybody who celebrates with a Christmas tree is going to burn in hell forever, because back then it was just a pagan thing. So Bill O'Reilly is just stuck. I think he's really ignorant. I think he doesn't know anything. He just thinks that the world the way it is now, it's always been this way. He likes to pretend that he knows a lot, but he only gets people on there who kiss his ass and who don't fight back, and when they do fight back, they're not very smart about it. But if he ever got anybody with half of a brain, he would be exposed for what he really is. It's just totally ignorant, you know. I'm sure if you were to ask Bill O'Reilly really simple questions about history, you know, like when was the fall of Rome, when was the French Revolution, or what caused the religious wars of the 1600s, you know, just simple questions that any high school kid could answer. I bet he wouldn't know the answer to any of that, you know. I mean, he thinks that when they had that that South Korean guy, what was his name, did that viral song, he didn't even know what the Korean language was. He's like, what's this guy saying, whatever language that is, you know? I mean, he's the perfect example of the ignorant American who doesn't... If you ask Bill O'Reilly to draw a map of the world, he probably wouldn't be able to pinpoint where Singapore is, or, you know, he probably doesn't know what Tibet is, you know? He doesn't know anything. He's just a thug, man, and who pretends. He's really good at putting on a front and will say whatever, and so he's the perfect front man for the rich old white guy power structure. So anyways, let's see what else he wrote. Why does he create fake issues when there are real problems in the world, like war and poverty? Yeah, the fake issue of Jesse Ventura getting punched. Like, why would you turn that into a news segment? And then why would you turn it into another news segment? It's obviously propaganda. They don't like Jesse Ventura's political views, that we should bring our troops back home and spend our money on the infrastructure of America instead of pissing everybody off in the world at America and killing people. You know, so they do the straw man thing. Straw man argument is if somebody has a legitimate argument with you, with what you have to say about something, instead of arguing with you on that point that you want to argue, you know, which is the most beautiful thing to do because it makes you think and you can argue out all the points and stuff. Instead of doing that, because they know they can't win an argument because they're dumb, they just attack the person, and they create a whole another story and just attack you as a person and change the subject. And so, you know, Jesse Ventura has a problem with the war, with us waging war in all these countries. And so they just attack him personally and then make something up. And it's so obvious to so many people how much of a fake parrot this guy is, how much of an asshole he is. Even his energy is negative. How he talks, you know. How come they didn't do the shakedown? Did they do the shakedown on these guys at this school and make them not do it? Like, even the words that he uses are gangster, and how he talks with that gangster talk with and, you know, instead of pronouncing the TH, he does the D's, and it's something that gangsters do. It's some kind of intimidation thing. It's so obvious his energy and how bringing up negative stuff to normal people, but I guess there's a lot of people like him. There's a lot of people. If you look at the statistics of Americans, man, Americans aren't religiously are pretty backwards. A lot of people in America think the world was created 6,000 years ago, you know. I mean, that's why that religion Scientology got so many followers, because there's so many people who just don't have any, you know, they're either totally closed-minded with a fundamentalist Christian, or they're atheists and they just don't know anything. And so you can be an asshole like Bill O'Reilly, and as long as you try to pump, you know, the status quo white Christian dude, then they'll run right behind him. Yeah. It's kind of scary to think about, and it makes you understand why so many of these other countries hate America and think Americans are morons, which we're not. We're the smartest people in the world, but we share ourselves so much, and our media is so strong, and we're always uploading YouTube videos, and we can see all of our news channels. that's the stuff that people can see, these Bill O'Reilly guys, and they see that he's popular because he was, you know, they're propped up by these big companies. They don't have that many viewers. It's going down. The only reason they have so many, I mean, they don't have like original viewers who watch them because they like what they say. They have a lot of viewers because they're already on the TV and they're subsidized. Yeah, like if you go to Bill O'Reilly's YouTube channel, he only has like 500 subscribers. He's a nobody. And the only videos he has, he looks like a sad old man, ignorant old man. And when he does his own videos talking about his own thing in his house, they're only like 30-second videos, and he's not pumped up. He's talking about something that's totally trivial. You know, like where I was when Kennedy died, you know? Like, who the fuck cares where you were when Kennedy died? Don't you have anything more interesting to say than that? You know, so they get him on Fox, and they pay him all this money to be the big thug, which he calls himself. That's his element, and he goes off, man. He fills himself with all that adrenaline. There's this video where he was, I guess, on the other show he was on back in the 90s, where he freaked out. He starts screaming at everybody because his teleprompter wasn't on. He's a spaz. So, yeah, that's why he fakes create issues, because it's just old-fashioned propaganda, like in the 40s, remember? In the 30s, when the Nazis did all of those propaganda commercials about the Jews, showing all the rats running around and saying, "See, look, this is Jews. Why do you want rats? We need to kill all the Jews." That kind of stuff. The whole, you know, and they still do it. The Koch brothers funding those commercials against Obamacare. And then they have the little doll of the evil-looking Uncle Sam, like, peeking his head up through the girl and her legs open in the stirrups. Get government out of healthcare. Like they're gonna fucking rape you. But he's preaching the exact opposite. They want to, you know, illegalize abortion. They did Young Turks did another show about this guy, this pastor, Rick Warren, had a problem with in Obamacare mandating that insurance provides contraception. And so he twists it 180 degrees around and says, "Oh, we have religious freedom in this country, and it's against our religion to use contraception. So they shouldn't put it in the healthcare." But that's actually the exact opposite. He's trying to force religion down our throat. That's his religious idea, that contraception should be illegal and not be used. That's some kind of weird Catholic thing. You know, the Catholics think that contraception should be illegal. But if you take religion away from it, all it is, providing contraception, all it is giving something to a girl because she wants it. That's her choice, because she doesn't want to have a baby, because she knows she can't pay for that baby and be a good mother. It has nothing to do with the religion. But they make it about religion, and then they turn around and say that it's against they're being persecuted religiously, and so that's a violation of the First Amendment. And he made Rick Warren made an analogy. Would you force a Jewish bakery to sell pork? But they're not even forcing them to provide the contraception. It's a national health care. It's the country. And it's this religious institution that uses the national health care. So that, you know, I know it's a religious institution, but if you don't want to use health care, that's your personal religious choice. Don't try to, like, bring it to the whole rest of the world, you know. But we don't have to provide health, the contraception. We shouldn't pay into that at all. You know how complicated that would get if you start making all these little adjustments for all the religions and their little... It's the exact opposite of what the First Amendment's all about. So, yeah, that's weird. They can't oppress other people. So them not being allowed to oppress other people means that they're oppressed. And in Bill O'Reilly, actually, you should watch it in the video that Young Turks did. They did a clip of him, and he goes, yeah, much longer are we going to tolerate this? Tolerate this, people saying that we should call it Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas, and the holiday tree instead of the Christmas tree. How long are we going to tolerate people saying, trying to remind people that we should say Happy Holidays? Reminding people to say Happy Holidays, that's freedom of speech. It's the First Amendment. Not tolerating people saying Happy Holidays, not tolerating somebody saying something, that's a violation of the First Amendment. He said it right there. He's crazy. They twist this stuff 180 degrees around. And Christians do that. They like to pretend that they're the victim. Christianity has been the main religion of Europe for the last, 1700 years. And they've been the ones who've been persecuting everybody. Not being persecuted. They were persecuted in the 250s for a little bit, in the 60s, intermittently. But they've been persecuted a lot less than Jews, It's ridiculous. And, atheists, talking about their atheism and trying to get religion out of it, that's just... I'm not atheist, I believe in God. But that's them just, pushing back against all the oppressive Christian shit that's forced down people's necks. They're trying to remind us that we're a secular country, which is a beautiful thing. I think we're the first secular country. And that's the beginning of free speech, like I said. So, anyways. So, also, do you believe he is a conspiracy theorist similar to Alex Jones with his concepts of far-left progressive atheists destroying the moral fabric of America? Yeah, I think he's a conspiracy theorist just like Alex Jones. He's just on the far right. It's funny, he's a total fascist. Fascism is... pretty much a good definition of, according to Franklin Roosevelt, is when the super wealthy people of a country have more power than their elected officials. And you can make a really strong argument that America is fascist now because our elected officials, the only way you can get in is if you prove before you even run that you're going to be a puppet of all of these big companies, and that's how they're funded. Politicians spend a lot more money to get into office than they ever make in office, and then when they come out of office, they're millionaires, and then they get jobs in the private sector with all these big banks and stuff. So the politicians don't really have any power. These big companies do. So it's a fascist country. But so Bill O'Reilly has this guy on, has an atheist on, who says, yeah, we should, they're talking about the billboards. People paying billboards to say, hey, remember, don't say Merry Christmas, say Happy Holidays. So he says, you're a fascist. So he calls somebody a fascist who's just trying to remind everybody that we're a secular country. That's just freedom. That's just freedom of speech. That's people using advertising to support their political agenda. But that's what all of the real fascists do. They use advertising to get their politicians in power. See what he does? He spins it right around 180 degrees. And he says it with this sing-songy, angry tone, which people who get like hypnotized easily or brainwashed or are already in his mindset just feel that emotion and his little sing-songy thing, which sounds ridiculous to me, but I guess maybe it works. They fall right into it, and he's their spokesperson. He's their great But, the average age of Bill O'Reilly viewer is 72 years old. And people who are 72 years old now, you can't have an intelligent two-way conversation with pretty much any 72-year-old. You'd be really lucky to find one who you could talk to about marijuana or, use slang words with, or anything related to sex or or even just regular history. They're really backward people, you know, and they're dumb. And those are his people, man. Those are the people who watch him. So he'll be out. I mean, his power is free falling. And so I think that's another thing why he's so aggressive. Is he's just frustrated and he knows that he's falling in popularity and so many people hate him. He's not so dumb that he doesn't realize how many people hate him. He YouTubes himself and he Googles himself and he sees everybody hates him. And so he gives him even more of a victim idea about himself. So, okay, he seems to want to stop any policy change such as Obamacare and thinks America is fine left as is when it clearly has tons of problems and reforms needed. Yeah, well, you can't have a two-way conversation with somebody whose main argument is, it's communist. This is a form of, this Obamacare stuff, it's a form of communism. And we all know that communism is totally bad, right? Because I guess he was a wannabe, like, Republican back in the McCarthy days or something. And what he doesn't realize, because he doesn't know anything about history, is, you know, the big communist countries like Russia, which is a failed country, in USSR, it's not because they're communist, you know. I mean, in America you grow up thinking that Karl Marx was like Russian, you know, and he's this evil guy. Karl Marx was just the founder of the first labor union. He was a Jew from Germany who was really good with money and thought about how to redistribute money to help the poor people because Europe was getting insanely jilted towards all the rich people, you know, buying up all the new manufacturing machines that were being built and making so much profit that they basically got to take all the serfs and turn them into slaves and work them until to death, pretty much. Basically, work people to death. And he was saying our society is going to collapse if we let the rich people get so rich and the poor people so poor, because then there's going to be nobody left to buy any of the goods that the rich people make, and the whole thing will collapse. And that the workers need to unite and create worker unions to have higher wages and that's when the beginning of the 8-hour work week and overtime and against child labor laws and all that kind of stuff. That's communism. But the reason that Russia failed is because Russia was always a failed country. Russia was never a healthy country. Russia was always the grassland where all of the Genghis Khan and all those Mongols were raiding around. Russia and those Slavs were slaves to Genghis Khan and those guys for 200 years, where they couldn't do anything. They were slaves to them. They'd give all of their money to them. That's why they're called the Golden Horde, because they just hoarded all the gold back in Karakorum or wherever, and were just this parasite. And Russia was never able to develop. And then they finally got Ivan the Terrible in there, who in the 1500s, who fought back and made Russia a independent country. But ever since then, the country was just really authoritarian, and they didn't get rid of serfdom until like 1868 over there, which was like slavery. And so when they had their revolution, and it was crazy, insanely autocratic with the Tsar, up until 1911 when he got ousted. He was totally out of touch with everybody. It was kind of like Versailles, the French kings, and so they just had this backlash, and they brought in theoretically what's communism, collectivization of everything, but it's still just as oligarchical as it ever was, where a small group of people control the whole country, controlled by gangsters. So it's really fascist, not communist. So when he says communism, you know, like if we want to make Obamacare, we're going to turn into Russia. We don't have Russia's problems. We're America, where we have freedom of religion and freedom of speech and all that good stuff. Smart people. I mean, why doesn't he compare it to Obamacare to national health care of all of the first world European nations and Canada, where people are perfectly happy with their national health care, and that's why we tried to get it. So he's just out to lunch. He's nuts. He doesn't know anything. He's just a dumbass. So he also always says America is a Judeo-Christian nation, morally defined by religion, and thinks socialist, capitalist reformers are against the spirit of America. Yeah. It's ridiculous when people keep saying, oh, we're a Christian nation, say Christmas tree. We're not a Christian nation, we're a secular nation. The first amendment of the first clause of the First Amendment of the Constitution. We will make no law, putting any religion over any other religion. And so, trying to remind us of that is a good thing. If you want to say Christmas tree to yourself or at your school, do it when there's a bunch of Christians around. But wouldn't you get offended if some Muslim said, Happy Ramadan to you or whatever? It kind of makes you feel alienated, So, yeah. So he has defined what America is all about to the public. Yeah. He likes to tell us how it is. In the past, he has also threatened to quit working if they raise his taxes any further, and he seems to have delusions of grandeur. That doesn't surprise me. That's crazy, though. Yeah, he makes millions of dollars with his job, and they want to raise the taxes on his bracket, and he wants to rebel against that by quitting working. Remember a year ago, I remember him saying something about, what's wrong with being rich? What's these people's problems? This is, when they were having the presidential debates, and they're talking about putting a higher tax percentage on the wealthy, like people who make over $300,000 a year. What's wrong with being rich? Why are people trying to persecute people being rich? That's him doing that 180-degree twist of logic again. Rich people persecute poor people. With their money, they can dictate, if they can smoke marijuana or not by giving you drug tests. If the country's controlled by big companies who get to do whatever they want because they're private companies, they can abuse people. And trying to give people opportunity and making enough money to be able to raise kids is good for the country, but he's a pure dog eat dog capitalist. That but that's him basically saying, thanks rich white guys for paying me so much money and for existing Fox News and rich multinational corporations gobbling up more and more of the pie and turning, Monsanto turning Indian farmers into slaves and making them commit suicide because they can never pay off their debts. Oh yeah, thank you. I love that stuff. Thanks for giving me a job. What's wrong with being rich? Why are you persecuting us? Isn't Bill O'Reilly rich enough that he doesn't need to feel a victim of the government? Yeah, exactly. If you're rich enough to raise your own kid and bring, and make it so your kid never has to work, why are you a victim? Don't you have what do you think about these factory workers who make $30 an hour in Singapore and stuff like this, or super poor people who can't raise their own kids in America? What do you think about them? Oh, that's just the way it is, man. You deserved it. They brought it on themselves. Well, that's what government regulation is to help keep people in check, keep everybody in check. That's why you would want to put a law in that has a minimum wage in Singapore, and help them have birth control in Singapore. Isn't Bill O'Reilly, okay, isn't he defining what America is about somewhat tyrannical against the spirit of American freedom? Yeah, it's definitely tyrannical. It's a 180-degree hypocritical twist. It's projection. You accusing somebody else of being exactly what you are. You've ever said something to somebody, told a story to somebody, and they tell you that you're lying, and they don't believe you. They don't even go, wow, interesting story. They're just like, whatever. And that used to happen to me a lot in Chile. I tell people stories and they'd be like, right. If somebody lies all the time, they're not ever going to think that anybody else is ever going to tell the truth. They're going to think everybody else is exactly like they are. You know? If somebody, you know, like if somebody's a stoner and they smoke all this weed and everybody they know smokes weed, even you're going to think that other people around are stoners when they're actually the minority. And, yeah, it's funny how another hypocritical thing he said is that some atheist is like, yeah, say happy holidays. He goes, but you guys are in the minority. This is a Christian nation. Why would you say that? It's like, exactly, they're in the minority. That's why you want to protect them and allow them to be them. You know, not bully them and trying to make them like you just because they're in the minority. You know? We have 95% of the pie. How come you're not letting us have 100? You're persecuting us. Totally insane. Totally insane, man. But people do that. People do that. You know, I mean, a definition of somebody who's crazy is somebody who, like, claims to know more about something than you. Like somebody who's never smoked marijuana in their entire life. And he has plenty of bad things about marijuana. Like, they're an expert, but they never smoked it. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. But they're convinced that they do. It's insanity. It's a form of insanity, and that's what this guy has. He's crazy, but he works for people who are crazy, and it kind of goes to show that the people in control are crazy. These rich old white guys with all this money to throw around are essentially crazy. They're in some isolated fantasy world, where all they had to do to get in their position was play the game, which is this us versus them mentality. And now they're in power and they get to push people around, and it's weird. So, but you know, as soon as once everybody wakes up, then it's over. You know, we get to have a new world. There's actually a statistic that all the countries in Europe, one by one, they went from a monarchy to a republic, and it happened when a certain percentage of the people became literate. And it's just this natural metamorphose that happens, like when a worm turns into a butterfly. It's all of a sudden you're in an environment that doesn't support a monarchy, and you need to have a country with laws because everybody's reading and we have enough newspapers and stuff. So it's the same thing. Once everybody wakes up and they realize that, you know, what laws are made for and what true freedom is and the value of freedom of thought and freedom of speech, then people like Bill O'Reilly, they can, you know, and the Koch brothers, they can put out these mindless propaganda commercials and these little 180-degree twists of logic and talking points, and people will see right through it, and it won't, and it'll be over, you know. And there'll be a new generation, a metamorphose, a new type of American who values an actual conversation and doesn't do these straw man personal attacks on people, and will actually talk through an issue and use facts and not make stuff up, and use facts because they like an actual argument with real logic behind it. And that's right around the corner. 10 years away. In 10 years, Bill O'Reilly's not even going to be on the news. I mean, he's an old guy anyway. Born in 1949, so he's like 63 or something. Something like that. So he'll still be... Oh, yeah, so he'll, you know, I think he'll get kicked off the air before he's old enough to retire. Or Fox News will just it'll just be another, like, kind of backroom news program. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to them. But they're going to be, in 10 years, they're going to be pretty much negligible. That's my prediction. Okay, peace out.